Ah, the Wombats. The Liverpool indie boys that shaped my school years. Just listening to this band brings back memories of chasing a new girl every month and getting exactly as far each time. Nowhere. Good times. But the question is their music as good as I remember? Well, the answer is a little complicated, and some of these songs are definitely better than others. So join me as I rank the Wombats' discography from worst to best. It's going to be a fun one. Just to clarify before we begin, I'm only ranking the 4 studio albums here. No Wombats EP, no singles, and no Girls, Boys and Marsupials, as all the songs on that appeared on later releases anyway. So without further ado, let's begin. Coming in at number 4, we have Glitterbug. A controversial pick, I know, but allow me to justify myself. Overall, I'd say it's a pretty good album. It has a distinctive poppy sound that was definitely an interesting new direction for the band to go in, and feels like the natural next step from this modern glitch. The issue is that the individual songs struggle to have their own identity. There really isn't many highlights, especially in the first half. While I think it was the right choice to remove "The Wombats proudly present" from the title to demonstrate the more serious direction of the album, I think a lot of the band's quirky charm was lost in the transition, and the songwriting overall feels a little more generic. If we take this track by track, I will say that Emoticons is a great introduction to the band's new sound, with both the instrumentation and Murphy's vocal delivery. And then Give Me a Try is a really fun song, with great lyrics like, "The millisecond that you're away, I get the loneliest feeling, that all the boys who couldn't get a girlfriend can relate to. Me." However, while Greek Tragedy is one of the more unique tracks on the album, the band has done better serious songs both before and since. And then unfortunately, despite some good lyrics like, "You put a war zone inside me, above and below the neck," "Be Your Shadow," "Headspace," and "This Is Not a Party" all kind of blend together. And then Isabel is probably the most boring song the band ever put on an album. Its emotional core is good, but the poppy production just makes it sound generic. Luckily, Your Body is a Weapon wakes you up with some great lyrics like, "My body is a temple of doom." And then The English Summer is a breath of fresh air with its funky guitars behind each verse. Pink Lemonade is also a fantastic song about a guy reluctantly entering an open relationship. You can just hear the spite behind Murphy's happily delivered lyrics. Unfortunately though, while Curveballs is a fitting end for the album lyrically, it's pretty boring once you get past the bass line. Overall, this is definitely the most boring Wombats album, but I don't think that's through a lack of trying like with some bands. This is just an experiment that didn't go too great. 6 out of 10. Coming up next, we've got the OG, A Guide to Love, Loss and Desperation. If we dive right into the track listing here, we start with Tales of Girls, Boys and Marsupials, a cute little intro that sets the mood of the album, but I don't think I'd miss it if it wasn't here. Kill the Director, though, is a much better intro. A fun song that deserves to be as popular as it is, and perfectly introduces the listener to what I like to call the Wombats' unnecessarily weird lyrics. However, some of these lines are a little clunky, and "Carrots help us see much better in the dark, don't talk to girls, they'll break your heart," is just bad. A good single, but pretty simple in terms of instrumentation, and not one of my favourites. However, Moving to New York definitely is. It perfectly keeps the momentum with its amazing bass riff, and has a much better balance with the weird lyrics. A party bag of lies, booze and then deceit is just so weird, but works so well. The song is also pretty clever in that he's moving to New York, the city that never sleeps, because he's got problems with his sleep. Then we have Lost in the Post, which is a cute little song about a long-distance relationship going south, but it's pretty forgettable. Luckily, Party in a Forest draws you back in with its synth elements that accentuate each verse of great lyrics like, "Upper-class thugs take middle-class drugs." We then have a pretty good transition into School Uniforms, which has some good, funny lines, but not much else. Here Comes the Anxiety feels like one of the centerpieces of the album, but it's pretty disappointing. It has a good emotional core, but I think the weird lyrics negatively affect the delivery, and I'd say that This Is the Darkest Song I Ever Wrote has not aged well. But I do like how the bass builds up with each verse, and the ending is pretty great. And next is the band's signature song, Let's Dance to Joy Division, which actually has some pretty simple lyrics. "Let the love tear us apart" is pretty on the nose, but I quite like it. What really shines here though is the instrumentation, and it shines bright with that great main riff. One of the boys' absolute best songs. Backfire at the Disco is also a great single, that plays into one of the early Wombats' greatest strengths, their humour. It's 3 o'clock and I'm feeling shite, I'm going home alone tonight. It's something I quote regularly. Unfortunately though, this is pretty much where the album dies. Little Miss Pipe Dream, Dr. Suzanne Maddox PhD and Patricia the Stripper certainly have good elements, but they're not enough to make up for these songs' fairly dull instrumentation, and the fact that Patricia the Stripper isn't nearly as funny as it should be. My First Wedding is a pretty strong closer to the album, that probably takes the crown for the funniest moment with, "He's pissed!" But unfortunately it's not enough to save the second half of the album. 3 boring songs in a row is very hard to come back from. Overall, this is a pretty good first album, that despite the similar lyrical themes, manages to stop each song blending together by giving them all something unique about their instrumentation, like Party in a Forest synths. The more fillery tracks and poor pacing in the second half are just about made up for with the great singles and clever lyrics. 6.5 out of 10. Coming in at number 2, we've got Beautiful People Will Ruin Your Life. The only album I was there to anticipate the release of, and boy was it worth the wait. I don't think I listened to anything else for the entirety of February. But why was that? Well, Cheetah Tongue is certainly one of the reasons. Its psychedelic sound perfectly introduces you to the dreamy world of this album, and it's just so much fun. What the fuck is this song about? Lemon to a Knife Fight is also a pretty good song, about the cutthroat nature of relationship arguments, but while I enjoy it quite a bit, I'd say it feels pretty out of place on the album, especially following the great mood that Cheetah Tongue set. Next we have Turn, and holy shit, this is what the more poppy Wombats should sound like. This is what Glitterbug should have been. This song's an absolute kaleidoscope that has more than earned its popularity. And then Black Flamingo just roars onto the album with that amazing main riff. They're both an excellent continuation of Cheetah Tongue's sound. My only issue with it is that I don't think the lyrics are hugely interesting. White Eyes has always been a favourite of mine, with its funky guitar and bass throughout each verse, and great lyrics like, "It's not much of a weekend when there's one of me and none of you." It's just one of those songs where you notice a new little detail every time you listen. Lethal Combination marks the halfway point of the album, and it's a cute little love song that's another example of how the poppy Wombats should sound. I don't like it as much as I used to though, because it just reminds me of one of my ex-girlfriends. I did not keep her close to me. Out of My Head, though, is a great way to start off the album's second half, with its incredible bass line, and the full-on return of the Wombats' unnecessarily weird lyrics, which actually contribute really well to the darker theme of this song. It really shows how much the band has grown. I Only Wear Black is something I relate to on a personal level, and has some great lyrics like, "Brought a brand new car, and flattened a deer by Richmond Park. Suppose I'm not the only one who fails to see the light." The old feeling, grainy sounding production here is great, and I adore the build-up of the bass throughout the song. Todd really outdid himself on this album. Then Ice Cream is a really unique sounding song that has the feeling of a Californian winter and a great breakdown with each chorus. Then Dip You in Honey is probably the dreamiest song on the album. The unnecessarily weird lyrics are in full force here, and the grainy production of I Only Wear Black returns to make magic. And then to close, I Don't Know Why I Like You But I Do has some great bass and guitar work, and a production that feels like it's easing you out of the dream that Cheetah Tongue put you in. A very good closer to a very good album. Beautiful People Will Ruin Your Life is just so damn solid. Every song is unique, but they work really well together. I'm a huge fan of the dreamy production, the bass is fantastic, and the unnecessarily weird lyrics are back. What's not to love? 7.5 out of 10. And this modern glitch takes the crown for the best Wombats album. And I'm honestly shocked that this seems to be the least popular among fans. Let's see if I can change a few minds. Our Perfect Disease is an incredible opener that lets you know right away that this album is going to have no bullshit. The band's synth work has improved drastically since last album, and the lyrical concept of yearning for a toxic relationship you once had is dark yet distinctly Wombats. Now Tokyo is the song that introduced me to the Wombats, so I'm definitely biased, but I love this one. It's got catchy synths, fun lyrics, it's just good Wombats. We then have a great transition into Jump Into the Fog, a song that makes great use of the Wombats' trademark weirdness for both humour and emotional punch. Anti-D is next, and just... wow. The beginning with the slow introduction of all the strings is just masterful, and despite one weird line about flattened pancakes, this song has fantastic, emotionally delivered lyrics that portray depression so well. The Only Tears Come From Our Heads When We Concentrate being a personal favourite of mine. Just comparing this to Here Comes the Anxiety shows how much better the band has got with their emotional songs, and this honestly might be the best track they've ever done. I have no idea how it doesn't feel out of place on the album, but props, guys. Props. Last Night I Dreamt is another emotional song, which has particularly clever lyrics like, I'm a good friend and an excellent lover, I can fool myself just like no other person can, and I'm just in love with that main guitar riff. It sounds like it's crying. Next we have Techno Fan, which I'd say is the only weak link on the album. It's certainly not a bad song, it just feels the most generic. Luckily, 1996 is excellent. It has great synths and emotional, nostalgic lyrics that encapsulate what feeling like shit at a party is like. I need a lover, not a friend tonight. Walking Disasters isn't incredible, but it has some great lyrics like, self-help might help when it makes us laugh. Then it's Girls Fast Cars, which is an absolute anthem. It has some of Murphy's absolute best lyrics, and I love that the title is Girls/Fast Cars. It's like he's saying that he's so shallow at this point, he'll take either. He doesn't care which. Then finally, we have Schumacher the Champagne, which is probably the saddest song on the album, but it doesn't get bogged down in this and delivers it in a fun way. I think it's a song that anyone can relate to on some level. I mean, I'm only 18 and I still yearn for better days and better versions of myself. The lyrics here are also absolutely on point. You might as well be proud of last place, and then the screams of, or not at all, close this album perfectly, as well as this list. This Modern Glitch is quirky, dark, and ultimately fantastic. The best Wombats album, 8 out of 10. Now, I'm aware that some of my opinions in this video may be controversial, but I would love to discuss this further if anyone is interested. So leave a comment with your own list, or creative way in which you're going to kill me for my bad opinions. I'll be sure to have a read.